Black rock music sucks. This isn't real rock music. I think he should stay in his lane. Nobody's asking why all these white guys are making reggae music. But we all are still curious when a black person does something that is rock. It's the King Show. I've heard some version of these comments my entire career. The funny thing is, these comments sound old, like something from the 1960s. But this is sentiments today. Listening to Vince Staples' album and seeing the commentary, I see a lot of positive commentary from the alternative, avant-garde, and critical community, but these people are forward-thinking people usually. They want to see something get pushed forward. From the masses, that shit different. Like the mass of hip-hop fans, are they getting it? The mass of alternative and rock scenes, are they getting this? I don't know, but they should. Hearing this Vince Staples' new project made me realize something. People still say these things today. The conversation hasn't changed. We just got better at pretending that it did. Nobody's asking why all these white guys are making reggae music. Even right now, I don't think he likes being portrayed as a rock artist or this is a rock album. It's just an album to him, right? All right, let's look at this. They tell me you got to do straight hip hop. It's going to translate better with your audience, whatever the fuck that means. So many people heard this before. This sentiment has been here in the industry from the beginning because of the basis of these categories and because of race. But we got to be real and understand the history of genre, categories, and race in America to really understand what we're talking about right here. What does it mean to be a black rock artist? Before somebody writes a dissertation in the comments, yes, I understand that rock isn't one thing. I know the difference between punk hardcore, post-hardcore, emo, metalcore, pop punk, ska, alternative rock, all that shit. And the 17,000 genres people will fight you online about, right? But this video, I'm using rock as shorthand for the entire alternative ecosystem. All scenes where black artists often feel like outsiders. Because one of the weirdest things about this conversation is that people talk about black artists and rock music like some new phenomenon, when all American music is black music. We know that in general, rock music is a black art form, correct? Throw that aside. Let's talk about it when it became a mainstream white identity and who was still involved. 3 black brothers from Detroit making aggressive, fast, rebellious music in the early 1970s, years before punk became punk, years before most people even knew what punk was. They were essentially building pieces of the blueprint before the culture had a name for it.
You know, we felt natural doing it while we were in our own quarters, but playing it out means that you had to answer so many questions.
Death is so interesting to me because it's the pure creativity of 3 guys from Detroit, influenced by the big rock music of their time, and decided to just go harder.
But we were just playing hard driving rock and roll, man. We were just really trying to be like the groups of the day that we love, like the MC5 and Alice Cooper and all those great rock and roll bands of the 70s. We were really, just kind of springboarding off of the sound that they was laying down, but we were just doing it harder, faster, and louder.
And then you get one of my favorite bands of all time. Bad Brains is everything from a kid from the DMV. Like, I sat there and listened and watched videos over and over again of HR going crazy at CBGBs. These guys playing so fast and hard and making the hardest music I ever heard. And they were all black. That gave me so much pride and confidence in what I was already doing. This allowed me to fully represent exactly what I loved in all facets. And that was me. I was the MC, the hip hop guy, but also in a band. And it made sense to me because Bad Brains also, what people don't know, implemented reggae into their live show, into their music.
It's worth noting that these bands weren't segregated to some black punk category. They influenced other bands and vice versa. Take reggae, for example. Numerous white punk bands use reggae in their music in the UK throughout the 70s, inspired by black punk bands' use of it. In my conversation with Tate, he mentioned how this idea that rock or punk as a all-white boys club didn't really exist in the UK.
And they're a big part of why there is a reggae scene across the nation and across the world. Nobody's asking why all these white guys are making reggae music. Bad Brains wasn't only a participant in hardcore punk, they were pioneers. And that gets forgotten or just gets said as black people invented everything. And I don't think it's that simple. I think we have to really think about what the world is looking at like at this time. Because of this time period, America was completely regional. All of its countercultures were this regional things that bubbled up and spread over time. Hardcore punk and punk energy spread from DC hardcore all over the country. I mean, there was other hardcore bands and punk scenes all over the country as well, but it kind of merged into this one hardcore scene. A lot of people would argue that Bad Brains is one of the most influential bands ever, like period. Not black hardcore bands, just hardcore bands. The speed, the energy, the musicianship, their intensity, the messaging, the rawness, they didn't give a fuck. Then you got Fishbone, one of the most innovative bands ever. You got Living Color, a band that literally had a massive hit with Cult of Personality. And with all that said, a lot of these bands get praised for their innovations, their efforts, acknowledged, but somehow still feel like exceptions. Like it's always introduced as black rock bands instead of just bands. Like, for instance, I've seen these young guys online as well as met them at the Warped Tour, The Paradox.
Just trying to get people to just, I guess, accept us as, normal. I think it is just kind of an odd thing to see, like, 4 black dudes with dreads and from Atlanta. That's the paradox. That's the paradox of it.
And they're the first black alternative act to get a #1 on alternative radio. But the way that they started to get attention is literally them getting racist comments from them rehearsing and it going viral because people was hating on it and just saying all types of crazy shit. But in a very punk, I don't give a fuck way, they flipped it and turned it into something that fueled their success. But I'm pretty sure they go around the world and people ask them questions that they wouldn't ask a white band. People treat black participation in alternative music like it's unusual, which is crazy when you realize we've been there the entire time. There's a whole lot of other band members, bands, artists, influencers that never get their just due. Well, people need to understand that this is a genre, rock, these alternative scenes, that grew out and evolved out of the black community into the alternative communities, then going into the mainstream. So the identity of that community to the mainstream is based in whiteness. So you have rock music starting in the black community. You have the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and everybody taking it all over the world, then evolving that sound through so many other subgenres and all these things. But the identity of all of those subgenres and genres that are in rock are white. So yes, black alternative artists have been here all the time and are more accepted today than ever. But there's still pushback within the mainstream, within media, and it's always a conversation. Like nobody's asking why a white guy raps. That's not happening anymore. Nobody's asking why all these white guys are making reggae music. I'm an MC first. 9 years old, I'm listening to Wu-Tang. Method Man's my favorite rapper. Shout out to Meth. And I'm writing rhymes. My first rhyme is, I developed a mastery of causing verbal catastrophe. That is a 9-year-old's first bar. Y'all are trash. As I grew older, there were so many artists and influences who bridged so many different genres that made me think outside the box. We're talking about De La Soul. We're talking about Q-Tip. We're talking about Pharrell, Outkast, Kanye West. So many artists who come from hip hop, but reached out into different genres to create their art forms that seemed boundless and genre bending, but still got pushed into black music.
Whenever we, and I mean guys that look like me, do anything that's genre bending or that's anything, they always put it in a rap or urban category, which is, and I don't like that urban word. It's just a politically correct way to say the N-word to me.
And NERD is probably the biggest case study of a band and a genre-bending alternative act that couldn't find a place. NERD should have been a very popular group, from my opinion. But I think the image and the identity was hard to place for people, which I think is the cultural issue that happens that we're growing out of society because the music industry is actually dying. The categories and strength of the narrative of the music industry happens to be dying. So independently, artists are breaking these barriers because there's no structure for them to actually fit in. Two cases I find very interesting. Two successful artists who created Black experimental art and were attractive to alternative white scenes. Death Grips and JPEG Mafia.
What's that like, though, to have to constantly kind of bottle up and hide your hatred of white people?
Suddenly, you are weird to Black folk and you extra cool to these alternative white kids. This identity issue that comes with genre comes more apparent when you actually successfully attract an alternative fan base. And what's this also saying is that we do not support Black artists for their artistic freedom. We support them when they are fulfilling our expectations, because these identities that were created and these boxes and categories that were created for us are way more constricting to the Black artist than anybody else. If a Black person's creating music outside of the boundaries that we created for them, we now don't support them. And that's part of the reason why Black alternative music struggles, because both sides can't fully identify with the artist. And these genres and categories that were created by capitalism constrict this Black alternative artist to an identity that nobody truly understands. This is interesting for me because I come from a band called Red Gold Green. Go ahead and listen to this, Spotify, whatever you're streaming in, plug that bitch. This album right here blends rock, punk, go-go, and hip hop all together because these are all our influences. And it is very much an alternative album. We have Dave Grohl drumming on the whole thing. We had Pharrell write a couple songs with us. We are signed to Republic Records, which is the same label that Drake and The Weeknd were signed to. We had all these people we working with, and the industry is abuzz because of who we're working with. But at this time, streaming doesn't exist yet. There's still these structures and categories that are built on something that completely has to do with race. So they didn't know what to do with us. They didn't know where to place this. And I think that happens over and over again. Like, is this a rock band? Can this go to rock radio? And in the end, they couldn't find where to place it, which is the same thing that I feel happened to NERD, which is what Vince Staples is talking about when the label's saying like, yo, it's better if you just stick to hip hop because your fan base is going to understand it type shit. This has happened frequently, even with Outkast and the Love Below album. Andre 3000 talks about, he says his friend told him that this is going to ruin his career.
Like after I finished Hey Ya and I played it for him, he said, man, if you put that out, man, your career is over. And in my mind, I'm like, damn, but I like this shit though. Like,
they place their own systemic identities onto you when you're just creating music that you love. Why does it feel weird to people? Simple. Because music genres over time have become identity. And your identity is how you see yourself and the people that you enjoy. Over time, people stop hearing the music and just seeing their identity. Hip hop becomes associated with Blackness, country, alternative, and rock associated with whiteness. And how did this happen is simple. The first two genres in American history in like the 1930s were race records and hillbilly records. Literally, Black music and white music. These are the first genres in American music industry history. Before that, music genres were regional. All of these regions would have their music defined, and we're talking about 1700s, 1500s. We're talking about way back. Then it became a class thing where you had folk music and classical music, where classical music was high end and folk music is what they sang and played in the streets. And there was also functional music, like this is church music. And as that evolved into the American music industry, we're talking about Jim Crow America. As these music genres and music industry gets developed in America, which becomes the standard and biggest music industry in the world, it's based and was created in Jim Crow era. That means everything was categorized by race. So innately, when we think of these categories and identities, we apply a race to it. Most people do that innately or subconsciously. Same thing with simply just saying rapper, right? They don't call them black rappers, but they call them white rappers. Why? One of my favorite quotes is that being black is inherently punk. You are inherently anti-establishment by being a black person in America, by being a black person in America. And this leads us to how I feel about Vince Staples' new album, Crybaby. I love what this album is doing. What I love about this album is that it's about America, policing, media, and power. Commas in between those words, while still being 100% Vince Staples and talking about how these larger systems affect us all. And from his perspective and upbringing, how he could see that. We're talking about a Crip whose favorite movie is Videodrome. You have to be a weird ass nigga to like Videodrome.
Videodrome. I watch this on airplanes. I watch it with my family at the house, and they tell me to turn my weird movies off. Not a lot of them kind of get the punk rock stuff off, and this is what I'm into.
And you clearly got weird white friends, not like, you know, my friend Skates and my friend just happens to be white and still likes Drake. We're talking about the weirdo white friends, the alternative motherfuckers. A lot of times when someone is very much rooted in the black experience and goes off kilter, whether it was Common, whether it was Mos Def and the New Danger, a lot of times those albums is looked at as their worst albums. Even Kanye's Yeezus within the black community and hip hop community looks at that like that's a misstep, whereas the alternative community looks at that as a North Star, which is a very interesting thing. When you are in that alternative space, which I feel like is in a middle space between all these worlds of understanding that genre is a trap. Genre is a category built on identities that shouldn't really exist. And now you have artists like Paris, Texas, which y'all should check out, Gene Dawson, Kenny Mason, and the Paradox Band on the alternative side. So many artists who are flourishing independently, just like Vince Staples. This is his first independent album. And his first independent album, he goes left. Also, it's just good. I enjoy this album a lot. I want to see more people win at a high level in this space because we've been here the whole time. We're still uncomfortable seeing black people in spaces we culturally coded as white. And the craziest part is that most of those spaces were either created or influenced by black artists and black culture. This Vince Staples project reminded me that the conversation is about genre. It isn't about punk. It isn't about rock. The real conversation is, who do we think belongs here? Because genre, unfortunately, is attached to identity, and that's how people organize culture in their minds and then within society. I want to conclude here, and I have to say, but genre is fake. Genre truly doesn't exist. When you really talk to artists and musicians, we like everything, and it's just music. It's music you like, music you don't like. But genre is fake. The reality is that genre was created so they can market product to you. This is all based in capitalism. It's always capitalism. But genre is fake. And this is why the genres turn into an identity, because of how they grouped people together. And it goes from, hey, I like this song, to I'm a hip hop fan, I'm a rock fan. It's just how corporations figure out how to sell you something. It's how they simplified real culture and commodified it.
And that's what makes it look like hip hop.
Punk, hip hop, everything gets commodified. Generations, everything gets commodified and figured out and synthesized in order to sell product. But genre is fake.